Ready?
Let's do this.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. What's cracking, world? It's your boy Joshua Q. Castro, and we're here with episode 9 of the ZosCast podcast. My next guest, again, I'm posting it up beforehand, so if you guys follow me on IG, you already know who it is. This dude is he's a big deal in my opinion on the island of Saipan. He owns 2 wonderful restaurants that you guys must try out. He's also graduated from a very prestigious entrepreneurship program that we're gonna get into. So welcome everybody, Mr. Glen Hunter.
Hey, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I swear one of these days I'm gonna get a crowd in here, man, and what do you call that? Just have like a live crowd so that they could liven it up a little, you know what I'm saying?
Live studio audience.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes when I watch it back, I'm like, oh damn, bro, it sounds so dead. When I intro someone, and I'm always saying yay, every now and then I'll clap. But anyways, how you doing, my brother?
Awesome. Thank you for inviting me down here.
Yes, definitely.
I'll be honest though, I'm actually extremely nervous.
Oh, okay.
Don't let anybody else know that.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Between you and me.
Yeah. Hey, man, everyone knows already. Extremely casual, you know what I'm saying? And it's just the story that I want to pull out of you. In my opinion, the Shack is one of the better restaurants out here, especially when it comes to local business owners. In my opinion, it's very successful. Walking in there more times than none with a line, that's blocking the entrance, this and that, and it's just so cool to see, and to know, it's coming from a local cat, that's putting stuff out there. So, and then of course Airstream will definitely talk about that a little more, but yeah, man, how we're talking about this off air.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw that you guys the Shack had a shoot yesterday.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. Shoot, we'll just start with that then. How was that?
We did a photo shoot and a video shoot. Actually, DR Visuals did. Denton came down.
Yes.
And it was to showcase an event we're having this weekend. I'm gonna say a lot through this thing.
Hey.
Feel it, brother. I'm like, whoo.
Hey, it's
Okay.
Cool.
Bring it.
Yeah. All good, man.
But yeah, we have a really cool event coming up this weekend. We do pop-up shops on our deck, and we have for the last 7 years that we've been in business.
Mm-hmm.
This weekend it's going to be focused in on ourselves, basically a collaboration we did with Tribe Marianas.
Yeah.
So Rob hooked us up with these really cool shirts.
Yeah.
Really cool shirts.
Yeah.
And so we did the photo shoot and the video to launch it.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be, for the first time ever, selling the shirts to the public. We haven't done a Shack shirt or a sticker or anything to this point. So we're venturing into kind of new territory, something I was always intending to do. And I talked to Rob about this maybe 5 years ago when he first started. And one thing would come up or something else would come up, but Saturday we will have the shirts available for sale. It's a limited run initially, and we're gonna set up a pop-up shop from 9 a.m. till noon on the deck at the Shack, and we have a couple other people joining us. Besides Tribe Marianas, we'll have Momoko with Spondylus.
Oh, okay.
She'll be down there showcasing her jewelry, the handcrafted local jewelry, and selling that. And then we also have a lady by the name of Beverly, who's out here giving kind of information and availability on CBD and CBG products.
Oh,
so she'll be out there on the deck as well. And since it's Valentine's Day weekend, as the shirt says, it's Love Local. The Shack is gonna kind of turn into the Love Shack. Not that it takes a lot of change. We kind of already are the Love Shack, so that's what we got going on there.
Cool. Yeah, you brought up you guys have all these like local businesses going there, and you give them the opportunity to sell some products off of your deck. I know Free in Saipan was one of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was it a hoodie?
We had Hood as well.
Yeah, or Hood.
Yeah,
and they made shirts for you guys as well, yeah? Like uniforms?
Yeah, she made awesome shirts for us. We have had shirts like from Undeniable made us shirts.
Oh, okay.
Hood made us shirts. God, I'm going to forget someone now, and this is going to kill me. Tribe made us shirts before. So we have had shirts made for our staff and for ourselves throughout the years that we've personally used. And our customers or our family that comes in always asks.
Yes, that's what I was gonna get to, man.
Can we get shirts?
I think it was the hood shirt, and I just remember all you guys were walking around. I was like, dude, where do I get that,
That's
man?
awesome.
Yeah. So it's cool that you're actually giving the public the opportunity, to grab some merch, because even as you can see, I try my best to get just about every local brand. I try and get at least one shirt, for memorabilia. But it's cool now. I'm pretty sure there's more people out there that would love to support that. Love to rock the gear. So it's cool that you're giving us that opportunity.
Awesome. And what we might do later going forward is we'll probably reach back out to Hood and Undeniable and all those guys to reprint some of those old ones that we used for uniforms and have those available, because it is true. There was a demand, or people were requesting it. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Nice. So yeah, man. So again, the Shack to me is its own experience, man. Like, and I mean this, like you walk in and the music's going, you see the customers smiling, they're conversating, and on top of that, your staff, man, you and your staff, I swear, it's so welcoming walking in, even though we're waiting in the in line, and what do you call that? It's just, it's so cool. The environment, the atmosphere in there is just so positive, man.
Oh, man, thank you.
Yeah, is that something that you tried to do from the jump? Like create that, and very
most definitely.
islandy too.
Yeah,
very islandy. Yeah.
Most definitely. It like the visual concept for the Shack came from I spent some time going through Ponape, and my uncle lives in Ponape.
Okay.
And he had these he had a Sakau bar on the side of the road, and his Sakau bar had kind of that image, the bamboo. He had what he called nipa huts, learned how to make them in the Philippines, and came out there and created them for people to sit around and drink Sakau and Ponape on the side of the road. And I really enjoyed that experience. I enjoyed sitting on the side of the road by this bamboo huts and shacks and just kind of chilling under the thatch roof. So when I started building the Shack and kind of bringing it together, because it's basically just a couple containers. The building itself is a container house, and it was abandoned at the time. And so when I started building it, that's what I kind of, in my mind, what I had planned was to kind of emulate that with a facade to make it look like this local kind of shack.
Gotcha.
And that's kind of what we came up with as far as the look and feel. As far as that, what you experience when you come, because the Shack is an experience.
Yeah, it is.
And it was made to be an experience. But the experience I initially was trying to emulate was my house growing up. My mom always had this open door policy. We lived in San Antonio. We lived across from PIC back in those days. Man, I'm gonna date myself, but back in those days, the roads were all Cascal roads with potholes and all that kind of stuff. And population at the time was probably 20,000 people, if that. And so my mom always had this open door policy at the house where like people were just coming and going constantly. Like Mount Piailug would show up when he was in town with on one of the treks that he was out here, or government officials, or local businessmen, or just our neighbors, or the Mormon missionaries that happened to be wandering by trying to preach the word, or no matter who it was, no matter where they came from, they were all welcome. And my mom always, like, she would feed them when they came, no matter who it was too. It's like, yeah, take off your shoes, come on in, take off your shoes, come on in. And they'd come in and sit down, and she would feed them. And back then there were the 13 channels on TV, so if it was the missionaries, we let them kind of cheat. If you're a Mormon, turn this off. We let them cheat and watch TV and kind of drink Coke and that kind of stuff. So and then later we built a big Pala Pala in front. That's also what the Pala Pala in front of the deck represents as well now.
Okay.
So we had, growing up in San Antonio, we always had this huge Palauan like a Pala Pala that was in front of it, almost like a bai, and that was kind of a meeting area. So every morning I'd wake up and my mom would be sitting out there with my stepdad and all their friends and just drinking coffee, and I'd be bringing coffee out or cooking something up, or my mom would be cooking something up and bringing it out to them. And it was always this kind of festive, kind of communal, kind of very welcoming place for people to be, whether they're expats that are out here or residents out here. It really didn't matter. They were all welcome and they were all treated exactly the same.
Nice.
And when I started building the shack and conceptualizing it, that was something that was always in my mind, that I wanted this to be a place that was this experience where when they came in, they felt welcome. They felt like they were coming into my mom's house. And so at the time when we opened, my mom was actually in there in the kitchen with me as well. So it really had that feel. And so that set the stage going forward from day one. From when we first opened the door and people came in and they had the smiling, they had me smiling saying hi. They had brother Chef D in there smiling. They had my mom in there, my niece. It was really a family operation. And that's kind of what set the stage. And since then, it's just, I like to tell people it kind of organically grew. That experience organically grew. And so as people started frequenting the shack, we started building relationships with them. We don't do any marketing other than social media and word of mouth. And we haven't. I've not spent a single dime on an ad for the 7 years we've been in business, which is not normal in any industry in business. But what we have done is we've invested in just the experience. When people come in, we just really put a high emphasis and focus in on customer service and making sure that their experience is a really enjoyable one. And so with that, as it progressed and as we brought new souls in, I don't think of them as staff. They're the souls of the shack. As we brought more souls in and we had the rotation of new people coming in, and my niece left off island, my mom needed to take a little bit of a break here and there. They kind of adopted the attitude that we had, the culture. It's a culture, and that's what basically was, the culture of the shack, and enhanced it each in their own way. They would bring something new to the table, right? Some welcoming experience they feel, or some attitude or shift in personality that they have, and it would just enhance this experience. And so over the years, we went from, saying, hi, how are you doing? Good morning, goodbye, hi, the normal greetings, to to a point where today we actually, we profess our love for them, because we have developed a relationship with the customers enough to that it's like we started dating, and now we're kind of at that point where we can openly express our love and appreciation for them. Yeah,
because I see that a lot too. Even like when we're done eating, even afterwards, I see you giving hugs to just about everyone when you can, and it's so cool because even walking out the shack, even just picking up food, man, as I'm walking out, it's like even the chefs in the back, the cashier, just everyone's like, hey, all right, man, have a good one, Awesome. But yeah, it's definitely, man, that's so cool, the whole concept in itself, bro. That is so badass. Awesome. Shit, I never knew.
Yeah. It's matter of fact, I can even remember the first time we vocally expressed love to our customer, our family again, because again, the customers aren't customers; they really are family. Was, I don't know if you're familiar with Boto McKinney. He was with the airlines back in the day, and so he lived out here for a while, and his family's from out here, and he's recently moved off island. But he was one of our regulars that would come in, and one day he was leaving, and I remember I was walking to the back, and I remember turning around, and for whatever reason, I was like, hey, Bo, I love you. And then he turned around and he was like, hey, I love you too. And then everybody from that point on, every customer going out started saying they loved us, and we started responding. And it just grew from that point on. It just became a fixture, and that was like maybe in our third year of operation.
Nice.
And since then, it's just kind of the hugs. I come from a hugging family.
Oh, okay.
So I know that one I do gotta, I love hugging people. And the good thing is it's kind of like life, right? Like when you give what you get. I mean, you get what you give. Yeah. And so with the hug, that's what happens, right? So it's like instant karma.
No, I
it's
get
really
you.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. For everyone too, man, that don't know what we're talking about, you just try going to the shack, man, and you really do get that experience. It's like, you can't help but walk in there with a smile, because like, okay, well, when I open these doors, what experience am I gonna get this time around? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's definitely cool, and it's good to hear the explanation of everything, man. Was opening a restaurant something that you've always thought of growing up, or did it just kind of come about out of nowhere, or how did that all materialize?
It's always been a focus of mine in my adult years. So growing up, I always, like I said, I come from a family where my mom loved people with food. That's how, like, she's feeding you, she loves you. she was always cooking, and I was always watching her cook, and I was always in the kitchen trying to cook with her. And throughout life, that passion for cooking and for making dishes and for loving people with food is innate. It's in me. And so when I was away for a while, when I came back, the first thing I wanted to do was purchase a restaurant. So that was the initial thing when I first returned about, God, now it's been like 13, 14 years.
Since you moved back?
Yeah, since I moved back. And so when I came back, I met up with a partner, a lawyer out here who had been here for a while, who wanted to partner up, and we were looking at purchasing, at the time it was Coffee Care. It was at its kind of height. It was on the bottom of Capitol Hill.
Okay.
And the owner, who was an expat at the time, was thinking of leaving, so he was trying to sell it. So we were looking at that. So that was my focus. I was planning on buying that, revamping that a little bit, and running that restaurant, managing that restaurant at the time, and owning that restaurant. That fell through for various reasons. It didn't happen, and I ended up taking a couple jobs out here in the meantime while I was kind of deciding what track I was going to go on and where I was going to go. And a series of events put me in a position where I had time on my hands and could focus in. I always had a business plan for various restaurants out here on hand that I was always tweaking throughout the years, like trying to change. This is not the shack is not what we started with or what I started with at the time, but it's what ended up coming about. But there's a whole process to that as well. The first business plan we had for the creation of I had 3 partners at that time. We spent maybe 2 or 3 years planning and discussing and meeting frequently on the development of what was going to be one of the first, if not the first, totally vegetarian restaurant on island. Because at the time there was a tropical, I forgot the blends that was here, and they were doing smoothies and stuff like that.
Yeah, this one.
But this was even before that, where we were planning it.
Okay, that was the one like close to like Sugar King.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
yes,
okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I spent a few years. We were developing a business plan for that, and at some point, I decided to break away and develop I know what it was. So one of my mentors in life, and one of the people that was influential to me, especially on this island, was Tony Pellegrino.
Oh, okay.
He passed, so I used to meet with him frequently and just discuss different things. He had a philosophy that I really appreciated. He used to write for the newspaper, and he used to talk to people about how passionate he was about what we had out here as far as resources and the ability to start businesses and to succeed out here on our own. He used to say, his line was like, there are diamonds underneath our feet, that there's so much value, so much valuable resources and things you could do out here. And so at the time he had a shrimp shack.
Okay.
He had a shrimp, not a shrimp shack, a shrimp aquaponics farm. He was growing Marina sweet shrimp back then, and it was very lucrative business. He was actually exporting it all over the world.
Oh, nice.
And so on one of the meetings we had, I was sitting on the deck and with him, and we were talking about it. And I said, well, let me draft up a business plan for the Saipan's first shrimp shack, because I was out in Hawaii for 15 years. And on the North Shore and in Kahala and all these different places, they have Kahuku. They have these little shrimp shacks, either cars or small shacks or just little hole-in-the-wall joints where people would go and just get shrimp cooked one of 4 or 5 different ways. And it was always a cool experience, and it was really, kind of an easy business plan to launch in my mind. And so I was going to be Saipan's first Saipan Shrimp Shack using locally grown Mariana sweet shrimp. And so that's where the initial concept of the shack came from.
Dang, okay.
But
that's cool, dude.
So I set that business plan in like I put that business plan together and had it all done. And at the time I was working for a conglomerate out here that sent me off to Guam.
Okay.
And so I was going back and forth to Guam, so I was dragging my feet. I was taking too long. I wasn't focused. And Tony ended up hooking up with someone else while I was in Guam and opening up Saipan Shrimp Shack at
I Love Saipan?
Yeah,
I Love Saipan.
Which is, some people got it. This sucks. He took the concept, and I was like, it's not it's not a novel concept. And, you live, you learn. I didn't have any safeguards in there, and honestly, I wasn't upset. I think if somebody can take it and run with it and can be successful, that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't upset by it. Matter of fact, I remember at the time I was with my other half at the time when we were talking about it, and we had some friends around, and they're like, so what are you going to do now? Because I had already started renovating the shack and getting it all set up to be this, Saipan shrimp shack. I just kind of was, like I said, dragging my feet as usual. And so I remember looking at the business plan, and I was like, okay, and I was just staring at it, and it was printed, and I was like, well, we can't do shrimp anymore, and I grabbed a pen, and I scratched it out shrimp, right? So it's like the shrimp shack.
Yeah.
And then when I scratched it out, I saw the shack, and I was like, why not?
Yeah.
Why not be the shack? And then everybody kind of laughed. They're like, you can't call it the shack. The shack is like run down. It's like, that's not, nobody's going to come eat at the shack. And I was like, no, there's a couple places I've seen and, in my travels in Hawaii and California called the shack. And I was like, no, it's good. It gives us a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah.
And so that's how the name, the shack, came about. Yeah. I just dropped that. And then,
yeah, dude, that is fucking awesome, bro.
But the important thing is it's all about, like not letting things get you down or not letting things stop you or push you back. Like never, like that's my takeaway from all of these experiences I've had in my life, right? Like along the way is like you can either sit there and wallow in it and be upset and be pissed, or you can look at it and say, okay, let's, how do we work through this? Or, where's the learning from that experience and how do we go forward? And that's something that I've been like throughout my life been trying to get better and better at, and that's kind of a prime example of it. Is
nice,
like
nice.
That, yeah.
So it's almost like an accumulation of failure.
Sure.
Got you to what the shack is now.
In my life, there like some people call it failure. I always call them learnings. Some people call them mistakes. I always call them learnings. I changed my perspective. I changed the way and like not to knock when people call it failure. It's just the way I as soon as they say failure, I'm like I had a few learnings. And just changing your perspective or the way you view it changes your outlook on it and how you deal with it too. And so that's kind of important. That's why whenever anybody says that, like, oh, you have any regrets? And I'm like, no, a few learnings.
That's
a
cool.
lot of learning. But that's kind of another thing. So the shack itself was this experience that I wanted to create, or that we wanted to create for the people that came in to kind of emulate, like my home growing up there and that kind of stuff. But it also served one other purpose, or maybe multiple purposes. But another one was an example. I grew up here, and when I grew up here, all the like little cafes, little stores were really mom and pop stores. They were owned by my classmates' mothers and fathers. The restaurants, the cafes, they were all owned by my classmates', mothers and fathers. That's the way it was. Somewhere along the line, for various reasons, that changed and it became, kind of altered. And a lot of the small local businesses either shut down or sold out to other people for, they had reasons, and I can't knock it and can't say it's right or wrong. But it's the fact of the times that a lot of the local-owned small businesses kind of either were converted to foreign-owned businesses or just closed up shop. And when I came back 15 years ago, I noticed that, and it was kind of like I was frog in hot water kind of thing. Like if you put a frog in water and you start to boil it, the frog won't notice and it'll just boil alive. Whereas if you take a frog and you throw it into boiling water, it'll hop right out because it knows the water's hot. So I was away for about 15 years, and when I came back, it was kind of glaringly evident to me that we've kind of lost a lot of our locally owned small businesses. And when I talk to people, a lot of people would tell me it's just very difficult. It's hard to do business out here. The economy's not good. You got to go through. There were rolling blackouts at the time, so it was. I really believe, and I've always been a strong believer in, like, a thriving economy is built off of the small businesses, as well as the feel and the enjoyment of the place is so accentuated by the small businesses that are there. Like whenever I travel, when I go places, I'm not looking for the large corporate environment or something. I'm looking for something that's true and unique to that place itself, right? That's the experience. That's what's going to fulfill me, and I figure there's other people like me. And so when I built the shack, that was another thing I wanted to showcase, was that somebody who doesn't have a lot, but has a lot of passion, can work with the limited resources and create something out here that could be sustainable and that could create jobs and that could create revenue for the government, and that could, not in a huge fashion, right? Like that's the other thing where I always feel Like people are always looking for that flash in the pan, that huge thing, the one thing that's going to provide billions of dollars overnight, right? And while that's good, it's not as sustainable as a thriving small business economy. Like because those businesses, they might not. Somebody did like research on it, and it shows like small businesses in the U.S. They are the heart of the economy. They create like 80% of all the jobs in the United States. They create a mammoth load of revenue, even against things like Amazon and some of these larger companies. But when you put all those small business figures together, it's shocking. And we at that time, I believe, we lacked that. Thankfully, since I opened the shack and I started work on it maybe 10 years ago, opened the doors about 7 years ago, it's been really refreshing to see that trend change. And so many in the last 10 years, so many small business like entrepreneurs kind of taking a risk, throwing their hat over the fence, and starting up various shops, whether it's a gift shop or a restaurant or a t-shirt shop or whatever it might be. It's just been so cool to watch this happen over the years.
It's so cool for you to bring that up because for the viewers that don't know, like that's what this podcast is based on. I call it the untraditional thinker. The folks that are going above and beyond, like you said, taking risks, I said this with Rob, it's like, I'm not trying to knock education, military, or politics, but I feel like I want there to be a time here in the scene of mine where when you ask little Timmy what he wants to be when he grows up, like I want part of his answer to also be, an MMA fighter, a restaurant owner, something along the lines of entrepreneurship. And, it's so cool that you're sharing this story as well, because it's very true, like you're from here. You came back and you saw that there was something wrong or there's something that you could change and make a difference. And, now the shack pops up, like it's so cool because I feel too, back to what you were saying about small businesses, like it does really open eyes, man, because at least that's what it did for me, to realize like, what is it, like when you take away all the excuses, it is very possible. And in places like the Shack, Ena's Kitchen, restaurants like that, like kind of prove it. Like it's just the hard work that you put behind it, and the key word in what you spoke of too is the passion you have. I'm very close to Frank Camacho, and many times, man, like his one statement is like, dude, there's no magic wand, bro. You just gotta work hard at it, bro. Find your passion and work hard at it. It's so cliche to say, but I always say this, the reason why it's so cliche because it's true. You know what I'm saying? Like true. That. There's no fucking magic formula to doing any of this. It's just all the hard work you put behind it and push forth. Another thing too I want to touch on, because man, I love that concept of the failure. Where it's not really failure, it's just something that you learn. I've always stated as well along those same lines is that all that energy, all that sadness, or if you're mad or whatever the case may be, like put that energy towards something positive. Put it towards what do you call that? Finding a solution. And see where that takes you. And it's cool because like now we're hearing it. These are one of those instances where everything that you felt in or that you learned from, equaled the Shack.
Sure.
Like there's a math problem for you. Like sure. All this stuff equals what's going on right now. And what's crazy is that, like you said, they're looking for that flash in the pan.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's like it really drags someone, man. Failure really drags people. Yeah. To where they have there's no longer any interest.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, well, shit, I guess that didn't work.
Yeah.
And then they leave it at that, and they go back to their, I guess their regular life, which is not a problem.
Yep.
However, it's like what I want to show kids is like, no, man, here's the other side of the traditional way of, again, I'm not trying to knock anyone, but, the other side of a four-year degree, the other side of going to the military and getting experience. Again, very good stuff, and I have a lot of family members that have gone that route and they're very successful. However, like I just want to expose the ones that don't do it, Yeah. And, it's funny, you're saying all this, which is very good, by the way, but anywhere in that story, did you get a degree, a culinary degree? Or is it, no? So
yeah.
all this
just
stuff
personal
was
passion and personal learning. Matter of fact,
Nice.
that's so it was supposed to be the shrimp shack, right?
Yeah.
So when we crossed that out and we did the shack, we needed something, right? We needed a menu.
Mm-hmm.
We needed some kind of thing. And I'm a strong believer in niche products, like not trying to offer everything for everyone,
Yeah.
but focusing in on something and doing it well.
I see.
And so I knew I wanted to have this bend towards a healthier cuisine. So I was already at that time experimenting with veganism, so and vegetarianism. So I was experimenting with, just because of growing up here, same thing. Maybe diet changes at that time. Nobody wanted to touch it. Like, oh my goodness, what?
Yeah.
Thankfully, even we've seen a change, and we'll talk about that later. But
Yeah.
we've seen a change even on that front, which is refreshing too. It's still progressing. But so I knew I wanted to offer, like I said, we had the initial concept was a vegetarian restaurant, so I wanted to offer healthy alternatives here. But I also wanted to offer some niche product, and I remember as I was kind of brainstorming stuff, I started like thinking back to I was in college in Hawaii for a while with a roommate from France, Benoit Martin, really near, dear, and super special person, and I'll touch on that later, hopefully, if there's time.
Yeah.
But I hadn't seen him for years, but he used to do crepe nights, and me being a guy from Saipan, living with him, and he's gonna invite people over to the house, and me coming from a house with a mom who cooks up a storm. Like, you need rice, you need chicken, you need fish. You're not inviting anyone over without it. He wanted to have these crepe dinners, and I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Can't invite people over and feed them crepes. Like, that's like dessert, right?
Yeah.
And but he proved me wrong. He would make this special crepe batter. He'd put it in the fridge overnight. He'd do everything by the book, exactly the way it should be. He was from France, so he knew crepes, if anybody did. And then people would come over in the evening, and he'd lay out this spread of chopped up meats like hams and cheeses and spinach and mushrooms and all these different things on the counter, like a buffet style. And he'd have this pan. He'd flip it upside down, and he'd have his batter, and he'd be putting it on the backside of the pan as it was cooking. And the whole thing was this experience, and people would come up, and we had this, buffet bar or whatever it was there in our little apartment. And the experience was so cool. It was communal. People were like grabbing the crepes, throwing whatever they wanted in it, rolling it up, eating it, and sitting around just having a really good time eating these crepes in this little apartment. And so when I couldn't do the shrimp and I needed a niche market, I just kept thinking about that. Like, man, that was such a grand experience. It would be cool to emulate that. And so I said, I'm going to do crepes. So I know, same thing at the time, everybody's like, are you crazy? So I was like, yeah, a little crazy. But you got to be a little crazy.
Yeah,
honestly, that's the
yeah.
thing. And I encourage people, like, you got to be crazy. We're crazy. You come there. We're nuts. Everybody there is crazy. And so that became the feature is a homage to a very, very, very close friend of mine, Benoit.
Yeah,
and,
go. You want to touch on that? You can, yeah.
Okay. Huh. Okay. But it tied. Okay. So the shack's been through a few rough patches along the way. It's still a growing enterprise, and it's got a long way to go. But in its path, it got hit as the rest of the island did by these two super typhoons. So the first one was Sodalor, kind of took some major damage, shut us down for 6 months. We regrouped, we rebuilt, and we reopened. And then 2 years later, bam, we got hit by U2 as everybody else did. Talk about what could be extremely frustrating situations where you can end up expending a lot of energy into wallowing over it and being upset about it and not finding a solution. I have to admit, I slipped after U2, and I did fall into that kind of funk of maybe questioning. Should I rebuild this? Should I go through this again? It was,
oh damn.
Yeah, it's like you see your baby get knocked around twice. Like, it's like, oh, and so I remember, like having that feeling of kind of like, maybe I won't, like not sharing it with anybody, but just internally myself. And I went in and the guys came over one day, and I was throwing everything out of the shack, like everything, because the roof was gone. So I was just tossing it all out the windows. There were no windows anyway. Just tossing it all out the windows, and they thought I was a crazy man, right? Like, 'cause the whole ceiling had come down, so I was just ripping it apart, and I was throwing it all out. And Brother D came, Chef D came by, and he was just like looking. He's like, "You okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just getting rid of it all, just throwing it all out."
Yeah.
They're like, and then Brother Henry came by. That's my cousin, who's a brother to me as well, who partnered with me on the shack as well with Chef D. Just to let you know, so the operation is it's a partnership between me and it's grown into a partnership between me, my cousin / brother Henry, who came from 25 years of experience in the hotel industry at PIC, and Chef D, who has tons of experience. So they're all they all work together with me on this. So just so everybody knows, that's as it's growing, that's where we're at now. But yeah, they both came over and they saw me in this kind of state, and I think kind of laughed a little bit, but they let me let some of this energy out, and just throwing stuff out. And so we ended up with this huge pile of everything that probably a lot of it could have been reused. And I know Henry went back in and probably pulled a lot of it out. But yeah, so I was pretty frustrated, and I was kind of almost at a stance, at a point of just throwing my hands up. And I remember somebody sent me a message or an email or something like that. I can't remember what it was at the time, warning me that somebody was using the shack to fundraise for support. And I was like, whoa. So, at that time, there are all kinds of like weird things going on, right?
Yeah.
Times of tragedy, some people take advantage of it. And I was like, oh, that sucks. That's like, that really sucks. So I said, can you send me the link? And I got the link, and I looked at it, and it was a GoFundMe account that was set up to bring the shack back to life. And it gave this account of the experience it was and what it meant to the community and what it meant to the people. And I had pictures of the shack before and after. And I was like, what is this? And then I was just looking, I was like, this is really odd. And somebody went through a lot of work here.
And you had no idea.
I had no idea,
clue.
right? And then I kind of scrolled down. Then I was like, I looked at who set up the GoFundMe, and it was Benoit Martin. And I hadn't talked to him in years, like honestly, years and years. He's never visited the shack. He's never been to Saipan. Him and his wife, Jennifer, set up this GoFundMe account and used social media to raise money so that we could repair the shack and bring it back to life. And I remember I had such mixed feelings because I'm a weird person. I don't take help from anyone. All my life I never did. Now I'm learning. And so it was I remember I was just staring and I didn't know what to do. I was like, wow, what do I do in this situation? Like this is one of the most thoughtful things anybody has ever done for me. And I've been blessed in my life with people always doing thoughtful things for me, and me maybe not receiving it as properly as I should. And so I was just staring at it, and my initial reaction was no. This is I don't. I don't take help. I can do this. If I want out, I'm out. I don't want to. So, and then I just kept thinking about it, and I was thinking I've been going through, like, just trying to better myself. Like I said, through my life, in my learnings, I try and better myself, and I knew I had to start accepting when people want to help, like allowing them to help me.
Yeah.
And so that was the first thing. I was like, okay, this is nice. He's trying to help, and it's such a touching gesture. And then, aside from all of that, it also highlighted how important in some people's mind the shack itself had become in our community, and it refreshed that like in my mind, right? And it kind of gave me that extra kind of oomph. I was like, okay, all right, that's why I did this. Okay, let's do this. And so with whenever we talk about the shack, and whenever I talk about it or I think about it, I always remember that. I remember like that's one of the big highlights, and is that gesture that he did to ensure that it still exists today. And if he had not done that, there is a very good chance it wouldn't be there the way it is today now. And at the same time, like cousin Henry came over and helped me out. Like at that time, I was like in that funk, so he came over and he took the reins on rebuilding it, bringing it back to life. Brother D was there, side by side. And so after you two, they orchestrated bringing the place back to life while I ran away and I went to the Airstream, and I took the souls from the shack over there to give them a place to work while this was being resurrected. And
Dang.
And so, yeah, for like the first few months, I don't even think I stepped foot in there when we reopened. And the two guys were running it, and they had adopted the culture over the years. And so it was really beautiful to watch. Yeah.
Damn, bro. Dude, that is a fucking story, bro. Hell yeah, man. Yeah, and you still haven't spoken to him since?
On email and on the phone since then, a lot. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Since then, a lot.
Oh, okay.
First
I
one
see.
was like, what did you just do?
yeah. Dang, dude.
But so now, and somewhere in life, karma's gonna come around, and I'll be able to somehow even that out a little bit. He's an awesome guy.
Yeah.
And his wife Jennifer as well. They both are very close friends of mine.
Dang. Okay. Shouts out to Benoit then, right? Is that how you say?
Benoit Martin and Jennifer Martin.
Yeah, dude. That's so cool. I think the people who are a fan of the Shack should be thanking him as well, man.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty badass, man.
And everybody that donated.
Yeah,
My God, I was for somebody that doesn't like to take assistance, it was such a enormous feeling of being so blessed and so loved. And so that was really something. I mean, it was a outpouring of support. There always has been since day one opening the Shack. There's been this synergy, people that come in receive the love that we give and the food and whatever they're there for, but there's so many that just give back as well, like in so many different ways. And this way, you invited me to speak here today. That's a form of giving back to the experience that you get when you walk into the Shack, right? And for other people, like Auntie Jean will bring by like lemons or pastries or stuff like that, and like everything under the sun. The surfboard there was given to me by the principal of Saipan Community School, Amanda and Trey. Everything there, like there's so much, even though a lot of it got blown away in the storm, there's so much in the Shack that's a product of the people that come to the Shack.
Nice.
It's really, really cool.
Yeah. That damn, bro.
Really,
Dude,
really cool.
honestly,
it's
I'm
an
so
organism. It's fun.
Dude, I'm so blown away by that story, man. That's hella cool, man. That is, that's a real strong gesture, and like you touched on, like, the island itself, man, was just going through a lot.
Yeah.
In my opinion, like what helped out with the recovery as well is seeing others recover.
Yes.
What it did, at least for me personally, is just show like, okay, these guys got, stuff up and running, whoever it is, whether it's a neighbor, a story I hear about, in this case, the Shack, looking at like, all right, it was pretty bad, but shit, it wasn't that bad, because people started recovering.
Come back.
So let's go back. So is that the birth of the Airstream then?
That was, I remember it, like I had come down to the Shack after the storm had passed, after you two passed, and I was standing on the deck, and everything was off the deck, and the roof was off the Shack, like the entire roof, because after Soda Lord, you're supposed to put the screws in the tin, or whatever the hell it was. Yeah. And so this time, instead of taking just the tin, which would have been nice, it took everything. But such is life. It's a recycled house, so it's it can't be shored up as well as it could be if it was something else. But yeah, I remember I was staring at the destruction, and I was just like, wow, this sucks. And my first thought was the souls of the Shack, the people that work alongside me. I was like, man, this is gonna take some time. And then in my mind, I'm like, oh, if it's gonna take some time. And I remember just sitting there, and I was like, standing there, and I was like, oh man, I remember Eric and his family, Jasper and all them, have a Airstream parked at the 360.
Yeah.
And so I remember I just picked up my phone, and he probably thought I was on crack or something. Like day after the storm, I'm like, hey bro, I messaged Jasper. I was like, hey bro, you got that Airstream still? And a few minutes later, he responded. He was like, yeah, I still have it. And I said, awesome. Do you think I could use it?
Oh, dang. Okay.
And,
just like that, huh?
Yeah. And then he was like, yeah, sure. Let me put together my house. And I was like, shit, sorry. Yeah. And so that's where the birth of the Airstream came. So we got together, we partnered up, and he had already done a coffee shop out of that Airstream years before, like maybe 2014 or 2015. I don't know when it was. And so it was sitting there at 360 and just needed a little bit of TLC The storm knocked out all its windows. So we went in, we put in the salvageable equipment from the shack. We put in the windows, did some changes, brought some of the furniture that was saved from the shack, and we brought the Airstream to life, and it became what a lot of people called a satellite shack for the time.
Oh, okay.
So we would always be like, oh, you're going down to the satellite shack.
Wait, go back to that one, John. Like, dude, even that. I mean, look at that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so much warmth in this picture, man. It was awesome. Like, you're creating a certain atmosphere, man.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. You know what? At my former job, you know, what we do is sometimes or what we try and do is we try and turn a negative into a positive. In that case, it was Typhoon U2. And it's crazy because, man, I wish I would have known this, you know what I'm saying? Because it's because of U2 that Airstream opened up, you know? So, like, that's your positive, you know?
Kind of our silver lining, we always think about that,
Yeah, that's so cool, man. And over here, the food is the same?
When we opened up the Airstream, we basically replicated the shack menu at a smaller level because people that wanted to go to the shack could come. So now we've had the shack back open since May. Since about May, we reopened the shack in March or May, somewhere around there. And so since then, the Airstream has been running in conjunction. But what we plan on doing is at some point revamping it a little bit, giving its own menu, giving its own vibe. And it already has its own vibe. So just making some changes that way. And we're going to do that in the next few months. We already started a few changes, and we'll go forward with that as well. So the Airstream will start organically shifting and growing into something different. But at the moment, it's very similar in a sense to the offerings from the shack. Yeah,
because even with that, man, the atmosphere there too. I remember at one point there was local bands or talent coming through. Yeah, man, that was so legit too, man.
Yeah, because so after YouTube, people were like, when we opened up the Airstream and we had it going, we had it open. Honestly, we had it open in a week after YouTube. It was crazy. So we had it open, but then of course we didn't follow permitting procedures and stuff. So I mean, there were some hiccups along the way. So we had to take a few steps back, and a couple weeks later. So I think it was like 3 weeks later that we were officially open after YouTube. And at that time, people were still, dealing with the effects of YouTube that it had on their house, on their emotions, on their physical being. Yeah. And so the Airstream ended up becoming a nice place where people could come and kind of like take a little bit of the stress away. And so it was a nice, like you said, that warm feeling.
Yeah.
And so we ended up like using it that way. Like let's create happiness and love here too. And so what we ended up doing is we had there was a guy, Jimmy Valencia. He's he's a DJ at one of the radio stations, 100. And he was a brother of one of the guys, one of the souls that worked with us. And he would come down and he'd just start jamming on his uke. And he would just be sitting there playing his uke and singing on the couch. And it was the coolest little thing. And then people would come by and they'd sit down. He'd bring another uke for them and he'd start showing them uke lessons. And I was like, wow, that's the coolest thing, right? And so we just kind of encouraged it. We're like, started posting about it, started telling people, if you want to learn, come down and sit with Jimmy on the couch. Yeah. And then another guy came by, Neil Fama. He's the island entertainer, or he's the magician.
Oh, okay.
Magician. Yes. Okay. So he came and he was plying his craft. He was kind of learning. He had been to the shack before you two. And so he came there and said, do you mind if I just do magic tricks? So I was like, of course, do whatever you want. So he was doing illusion. So we had that going. We had somebody in the corner, Jim. We call him Bamboo Jim. He's a fixture at the shack normally. He's left. He's learning some stuff. He came by and was doing tarot cards on the side. And then so as we had this little community going there that was real vibrant and fun, Jojo Alapudzu came over one day and he was like, hey, you should do something together like at night with the local bands or local entertainment or an open mic. And I was like, that sounds awesome. And so he offered so much. He came with his whole team. And they had this professional video set up. Yeah. It was crazy.
And it was live as well,
right? It was crazy. He was streaming it live. Yeah. And so we created this stage for local performers to just come and showcase their talents. And it was the most beautiful thing ever. There were so many people that came out. And we did that every, I want to say we did it every Friday or something like that. But it was insane. It was insane to just see that all, and there's videos somewhere out there in the world that showcases it, because I think even now, like, it's hard for me to even recall, because it was thrilling. It was really cool. It was awesome. It was awesome production.
Yeah.
It was a full house. There was,
I've seen a couple of the videos, and I've been there too a couple of times when
really
that was going
fun.
on. Yeah, and it was like, man, it just created such an atmosphere, man, for folks, and I feel you nailed it, because that's what it was too, especially after YouTube. It was just kind of just to relax, like, okay, you made it through the day, we're good. You know what I'm saying? It might be harder days, but you know what I'm saying, let's deal with the now. Let's just kind of relax a little and chill and mingle. You know what I'm saying? Try and get back to normal. Yeah, so definitely, damn, man. That was fun. That's so I can't stop thinking about it now, but that is so cool. When I was a counselor, like, I literally would ask that, like, who finds Typhoon U2 as being something positive? And you hardly see hands raised up, and it's like, I'm like, it requires a little critical thinking, and I'd come up with my own examples, but man, if I would have known that this is, the Airstream came because of Typhoon U2, that definitely would have been one of my top examples.
Yeah, there's something to that, like dealing with tragedy or trauma. Like the way you react to it does, like, help you heal, help you recover. Remember, I don't know if you remember when, like, the internet went down for a month out here, or the line was cut or whatever. Everybody was going crazy.
Panicking.
It was terrible, right? It was terrible.
A lot of conspiracies too.
I remember. I think it was like, man, I'm blessed with the best people around me. Mary Jane, I think, brought this whiteboard that we used to use for a menu up. And I think she, like, wrote something like Facebook like old Facebook or archaic Facebook or something on the top of it, and made it look like a Facebook page, and put it outside so that people can post on Facebook at the shack. So we had this huge thing that was going with people posting comments, because there was no internet. So if you're jonesing, but you know what I mean? So they'd come and they'd be outside. So it was the coolest thing. It was this big, so it's things like that. It's like how you deal with it, right? You can sit there, you can cuss, you can curse, you can be upset, or you can look at it and say, okay, what can we do here now? Let's have some fun with this.
It's funny because, I'm going to stop talking about my work after this.
Go ahead. Yes, please.
But, because, when I ask adults that question, one of their positives that they come up with is the fact that there was, or after YouTube, was the fact that there was no electricity. So as soon as the gadgets went out, kids were back outside. For me personally, it gave me the opportunity to teach my sister's kids what to do after a typhoon.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying? And I always tell people, like, you could go to the smartest university in the world, but they could never teach you what you've experienced, And it's just so tough to try and get that out of everything, anything that's devastating, not just Typhoon U2, but it's really hard because, in my opinion, the negative is just so powerful.
Sure.
It's very overpowering, but when we do presentations, where I was working, I would always tell them, like, I do agree that, Typhoon U2 was negative, but I feel it was only 99% negative.
Sure.
There's that 1% of positive that...
Just got to highlight that.
Yeah, exactly. Shine the light on that one and then move forward with that thought process and not necessarily the negative. And even, what do you call that? Like, the first, with the kids, is so funny because, I'll be like, who sees Typhoon U2 as being bad? And everyone will raise their hand. I'm like, all right, who sees Typhoon U2 as being good? No one raised their hand. I was like, and then I'll be like, all right, let me rephrase that question. Who was happy that there was no school for a while? And then they all start raising their hands. I was like, see, there you go. We have to thank Typhoon U2 for that, So it's like anything that comes out of the Airstream, or any story that comes out of the Airstream, anything, what do you call that? The positivity that it gave out after Typhoon U2 is something we all got to turn back on and be like, you know what? Thank you, Typhoon U2, for that experience, because now I'm enjoying myself here at the Airstream.
No doubt.
So damn, that's cool.
Yeah,
man.
It was a really good, and the partnership was so cool because I was, like I said, I just reached out and Jasper jumped too. And we teamed up, and he did such an awesome job building it with me. It was so cool. It was awesome to see.
Yeah, man, and maybe it's a good time too to say this, man. If you guys don't live here on Saipan, like Mr. Glen Hunter here, especially after Typhoon Solar, we're just talking about this off air, but that's the first time I met him, and this dude, not only were you out there physically helping, handing out water, but like I feel like you use all your social media platforms to inform, to inform the general public on not only the typhoon itself, but like where the spots were to get assistance,
Sure.
and I just remember, man, someone was asking me, I think it was a family member, was asking where to get water or something along those lines, and I didn't have an answer, and I just remember scrolling through Facebook, and then I seen one of your posts.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, oh shit, okay, maybe try this spot out, So yeah, man, he's been very vital to a lot of the recovery that happens out here, and on top of that too, even with the whole support local deal, and I know we touched on that earlier. Like I feel that all just comes full circle, with, and then now you're telling us a story about the shack and that experience that you're trying to put out, man. Like, yeah, good stuff, man, by this gentleman in front of me, man. Shit, I'm honored now that you're on the show, you know.
No. There's and keep in mind for everything that I was sharing, I was doing exactly what you said. I was utilizing whatever social media resources I had to share messages. But all those messages came from sources, right? And those sources were doing so much on the ground, so much. And so it was cool to use but that recovery effort was really, like, there were so many people doing so much, and I just kept trying to like champion it and showcase it, and then also look for the positives. Exactly the same way I was using my social media to shine lights on that 1% of, yes, you got to call out the issues. You have to, because if you don't call out the issues, how are they going to be resolved, right? You got to first acknowledge them. It's like anything in your life, right? If you have a problem, you have to first acknowledge it. You have to, and so there's one aspect of doing that, and I will always use every resource I have to showcase or to highlight issues that need to be resolved.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing wrong with that, and when I do that, some people might look at it as, oh, stop whining or whatever, but it's not done for that reason. And anytime I put forth an issue, whether, like, say at that time maybe it was getting water or it was whatever it was, I always try and couple it with a solution. Like, this is an issue, here's a solution, anybody got other, let's figure this out. So it's always for solution finding, not to just beat a dead horse or and so that was the cool thing back then. So I would highlight, like, or somebody would share with me a problem, and I'd highlight that and showcase it online or through whatever resources I had at the time. A lot of the radios in Guam and here would call and ask for updates, so I'd utilize my time whenever they'd get me on the phone to just, like, okay, this is the one. Today it's going to be water. Tomorrow it's going to be food. The next day it's going to be shelter. And so I had, like, this weird plan in my mind going forward on how it could be useful. But along the way, like I said, there were so many people doing so much, both after Sodalore and both after YouTube. Especially after Sodalore was a learning experience, right? Because nobody had dealt with anything like that. And so a lot of things were not in place, and a lot of stuff was very green to both our government, our private, and our business. And so we were learning as we went, and it was cool because as we learned, another positive is we set up certain things that could be useful should this happen again. Little did we know it would be a couple years later.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it was really cool to see that perspective, because I was there with Sodalore, then I was there with you two, to see how those things that were put in place by various people were stood up so much quicker. And were addressed so much faster than the first time.
And, I always say too, Sodalore didn't hit Tinian, that bad. I was on Tinian. And I remember I flew back here to help my mom out with her spot. And I just remember when I landed, coming from the airport, that Shell gas station had a line from the airport. And then when you passed it, it had a line almost to that traffic light coming in. I just remember, holy shit, dude, this is bad. And there was also a sense of panic, that was going on. And what's crazy is, fast forward to YouTube, there's still long lines, but less of a panic.
Not the same,
But man, on Tinian though, because they didn't experience Sodalore, like the panic was setting in, and it was just like you said, like I was saying earlier, the experience that we had with Sodalore was just a very, very tough lesson. Very tough learning process, and then YouTube came about, and back to you sharing all these resources. What it did too, man, honestly, for me at least, is that I didn't have to scroll anymore. You know what I'm saying? I'll just go straight to your page. Like, okay, what does Glen have, posted up now? You know what I'm saying? And I was trying my best to share it as well. Because, it was just so, it was so cool, man. What was going on,
Awesome.
and I hate to admit it now, but I've never eaten at the shack,
That's no problem.
even
No problem.
throughout that whole process, but then
Who wants to go eat crepes? Who eats
Yeah.
crepes? No, I'm just
But
kidding.
no, but it's so funny because I feel like I got to know you before, I got to know the restaurant,
Yeah.
So it was funny. But shit, we're here now, and
Yes.
I stand by the shack now, man.
Awesome,
Most
brother.
definitely.
Thanks.
But yeah, man, that's so crazy. On top of everything, you didn't have a culinary.
Is that me?
Might be. No. So without having a culinary degree, you had these two successful spots. But like I said in the intro, you did, however, get a certificate from Goldsman.
Yeah.
Can you explain? I'm gonna fumble those words, man.
So as far as like traditional learning, I've never been, man, anything traditional. I just don't fit. I don't fit in this world. I always tell people that I really don't.
Okay.
I think differently. I act differently. I have a really difficult time with traditional learning. And so I went to 3 different colleges. Business management was my first one. Second one was pre-engineering. Third one was for hospitality management, and I never finished any of them.
Okay.
And I was always never set on what I really wanted to do. Later in life, I ended up hooking up with a good friend of mine, and we I was given he gave me the ability to help him start up a web and software development company in Hawaii.
Okay.
And that experience changed my life. It was the most fulfilling experience I think I ever had, but the most stressful, the most everything about it. I was a young punk, and I learned a lot through that experience. I spent maybe 6 years with this company, and we grew up from almost nothing to a highly successful company, and then we went through some tough times, and so later in life I also worked for a few conglomerates where I'd managed their businesses and got a lot of hands-on experience from running my own business, from years before that, either management or supervisory experience along the way. So everything was hands-on and learning as I go. So when I went to start up the shack, when I approached it, I approached it with the traditional business sense, right? Everything I knew, everything that I learned, everything that I picked up along the way. But the way I run the shack now and the way it exists is, it's kind of like that thing where they say you have to know the rules so you can break them. And so that's what the shack is. It's just it's all broken rules. So when I a couple of years ago, right before you two, Nicole Bavalta from SBDC, she had just taken over, approached me and said there was this program. It was a entrepreneurial program aimed at just small business owners. There were some thresholds, like you had to have more than 5 employees, you had to be in business for more than 5 years, you had to make over a certain amount per year in gross sales. And if you met those thresholds, you were allowed to apply and get interviewed and try, through what should be normally a rigorous process to try and get accepted into this Goldman Sachs 10,000 small business program. And it's the national program is conducted at Babson College in Boston. It's the #1 entrepreneurial college in the nation.
Okay.
And so the program itself would, if I had to pay for it, would probably be like a $70,000, $60,000 program.
Oh,
it's
shit.
that.
Okay.
It's a 4-month intense online and in-person entrepreneurial program. And so at first when Nicole approached me for it, I was like, traditional learning. But again, I'm trying to change, right? I'm trying to better myself. I'm trying to become a better person. And so when she approached me with it, I was a little bit more amenable, and I was like, okay, let me. I also really like Nicole too, and it'd be a flag in her cap if somebody from here could enter into the program. So it was kind of also a way in my head that I justified as I was helping her, right? But truthfully, I was really helping myself too, and in the end, it really was so helpful. But so I applied. I went through the whole interview process, and maybe because nobody in their life had ever applied from CNMI, I was selected, which was good. So being the first always helps.
Yeah. That's badass.
So I set the bar right.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Like, just bring the little boy from the islands.
Yeah, we need to add diversity in this program.
And so, so I was allowed to enter into the program before you two, and I started it and at first I was kind of like reluctant. It's an online course. I know nothing about online courses. I know nothing about like taking classes again. Yeah. And it was intense. So I remember being a little burnt out and kind of trudging through it, and then thinking, okay, you got to go to this face-to-face, the first one in Boston. And I remember saying, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. And after that, I'm quitting. Like in my mind, that's what I said. So I went to Boston, and it was like a truly intense 7-day face-to-face, 8 in the morning till 8 at night type thing, constant. This cohort just meets, and they fill your brain with all kinds of stuff. Really important stuff. And you work in these small groups and in these large groups, and the program itself can be so fulfilling. But at that time, I had this negative outlook, right? Like I was like, oh yeah, traditional learning, da da da. And so I wasn't giving it its full, like I wasn't giving it
full effort.
Yeah, I wasn't giving my full effort. I wasn't giving it like the justice it deserves. I was being a little bit of a punk, and but I was going through it, and I was really bonding well with my cohort at the time, the people that I was working with, and I really appreciated that, the social networking, meeting all these other entrepreneurs from all over the United States, and comparing struggles and talking about solutions and, the commonalities, even though they're all in different industry. And that network was so valuable. I was like, wow, I really want this network, like just a network of people that I could have, and because they put like 100 people in this room that are all business owners, that are all vetted. They've all been vetted. They started up these businesses. They took the risk. They go through these struggles daily. It's like your guard drops. So when you're sitting with them, it's not like sitting with anyone else. Now you're sitting with somebody who's kind of been through the pains and the tribulations that you have been through, and deals with the same struggles to some extent. And so it was so fulfilling to just sit down and unwind and talk with them. So every day I would look forward to that, like the opportunities to just pick people's brains or share different stories. And then you two hit, and I was like, oh, great. Now I'm like just starting to find value in this. I'm going to finish this, and you two hits, and I can't get online. I can't travel to Boston for the face-to-face. And so basically I had to drop out. And I was like, oh, this is the story of my life. And so I remember just being like,
how far into it were you by that time?
At least halfway through.
Halfway?
Yeah,
damn.
About halfway through. And
shit.
Yeah, I remember that out of everything, that was one, like I didn't expect to be that frustrated by that. Like I was like, oh, but I was so frustrated. I was like, that really sucked. Because getting into it's not easy. Like I'm a very private person, and I don't, like I'm sharing a lot with you now, so that's kind of weird, but I'm learning. But I had to like open up my books completely to them. I had to show them the last, 5 years of operations. I had to show them bottom line. I had to show them all this stuff, like just to try and get into this program. I remember every step of the way, I was just like, I was cringing. I was like, oh, why are you doing this, Glenn? And then you got to go through these interviews with these guys in suits sitting in New York or where the hell they were. And I'm on Skype, and I'm sitting in a t-shirt at 2 a.m, somewhat, tired as hell. And I,
hey.
I know that guy. And I remember being really, really frustrated that Super Typhoon U2 stopped that from progressing. And I was just like, well, write that off, because it's such a tough program. You can't stop. Like there's no, like if you don't show up, that's it, right? Like there's no little except in case of this or whatever it was. So I just figured whatever, and I wrote to him like as soon as we did get email, at least on and off email, I wrote to him and I let them know what I was going through, and I said, I'm so sorry. And they said, well, we're really sorry, we understand. Normally if you fall out for any reason, you got to recoup anything that you've used because you didn't finish the program. But they said they would no problems there, and that I could reapply in the future. And I was like, okay, thank you. And I was just thinking in my head, I'm not going to reapply in the future. I'm not going to go through all this stuff again.
Yeah.
And so I just wrote it off and left it. And then later, as I was rebuilding the shack, or as the guys were rebuilding the shack, I was hiding. I was at the Airstream, and one day, and I want to say it was like January, I got this email from one of the Goldman Sachs guys, and he reached out to me and he said, they reviewed everything and they saw that this was, you know, extremely unique situation, and if I would like, I could take the next cohort. It started in, I want to say like February or something like that, like a couple weeks later. If I want, I can just take it, but I have to go from beginning again. And I was like, sure, why not? And I almost looked at that as a blessing too. I was like so excited. I was like so thrilled. I was like, yes, of course, I'll do it, no problem. And my attitude was so different. I was like, yes, I want this. I want everything about this now. And so things happen for a reason, right? I would have sloshed through the program and maybe got the certificate, and I probably wouldn't have now in retrospect.
Did that time off make you kind of appreciate?
Like, it definitely changed, like meeting the people and understanding how strong that network was really enhanced my belief in the program. But also that face-to-face for, like, I was under the impression that I was so odd in the way I look at how I handle business. I don't operate a business in any of the traditional sense that I grew up with or that I've managed in the past. So the businesses I managed in the past, bottom line was so important. Profit was so important. You know, like it's a different way, and everything was stringent rules and regulations and certain things, uniforms and everything, like time and, you know, all these different things that play into it, and the way you account for things. And it's not how I feel, right? So when I started my own business, the Shack, when we started a business back in Hawaii too, we didn't play by the rules. And so when I started the Shack, I initially tried, like, I was, okay, I'm going to run this, like, you know, let's, you know, crunch all the numbers, do all this, you know, maximize profits, do all this stuff. And I kind of started that way. I was like, okay, I'm going to open at 6. I'm going to close at 9 at night. I'm going to, you know, like all these kind of different things. And as I went along, it became stressful, and I started losing the passion. And I was like, whoa, this, and I was a little bit of an ass in the kitchen. I was like a major ass. I was like, you know, because, I don't know, like it's our baby, and I want everything to be perfect. And so I was that guy. I was that guy that would be like, what the fuck is this? Throw it in the trash and then make it again. Or like, get out of the way. I'm gonna make it. Yeah. And that's how I was. Like, I was that way, and you know, my mom, my niece, and everybody that had to suffer around me for those few months in the beginning will attest to that I was just this, I was still a work in progress, right? And I remember, like, as I went along, like, at the time, I remember I talked to my ex-wife about it, because she was helping out at the time too, and I remember them telling me, like, it's your thing. You don't have to, like, you can do it the way you want to do it. And I was like, oh, this is true. And it was like I had this epiphany and this aha moment, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna close at 2, and I'm not gonna open on Sundays. And I'm gonna reduce the menu offerings, and I'm gonna, like, and I just started doing these weird things, and I started changing the way I acted, and I started taking an emphasis off of getting everything 100% perfect, and instead focusing in on the experience as a whole, like, because the whole purpose of this was to make it feel like you came into someone's house and everything, and I was losing it in creating this traditional stressful environment. And so so when I went to Goldman Sachs, I expected that they were going to try and drill into me all this traditional business learning that I've studied over the years, and I've been through a lot of leadership trainings. I've been through a lot of, like, just personal trainings of my own, because I am always trying to better myself, so I will go through things to understand. I'll read a lot, and so so I was surprisingly, like I was surprised when I went to the face-to-face and they started doing the exercises and the work, and they were actually kind of more in line with my philosophy on running a business, on putting the employees first, making sure they're happy, making sure they're content, making sure the customer experience is grade A, and not really focusing in on the dollars and all that as much, right? Like, and so that was kind of refreshing to find out that like there is this, and they would say it like there's this trend away from traditional businesses and the way it is, and then they're highlighting also on the small business aspect. That was their forte.
Yeah.
That's where they gave me all these stats on how important it is, and just so it was so after that, I really on the chance to take it again, I just jumped at it. I was like, okay, come on, Glenn.
Yeah.
Put your head together, get in this. And it was really, really, really difficult because keep in mind, trying to build the shack back up, dealing with the new Airstream, dealing with no power still kind of going on and off, dealing with all this stuff. And I was just like, do you really want to take on this intense entrepreneurship program right now again? And I was just like, but I couldn't say no. I remember talking, like I said, to my significant other at the time, and I was like, I just can't say no. It's going to kill me, but I just can't say no. And so I said yes, and thankfully everybody around me gave me the time and the ability to do it, and then even to leave for the 2 times I had to leave while everything was kind of coming to life. But it was such a fulfilling experience. Yeah. Like I learned so much there that I couldn't have learned in any other way, and I'm still learning. We finished that program. God, when was it? Probably like March or something like that. Who knows? Maybe March of last year. And since then, probably like April, maybe. So probably finished in April.
Yeah. Okay.
And I got graduated with a certificate of entrepreneurship, which was really cool. And then after I left the program, the group that I was with, there's a group of 7 of us that in our cohort that was called the Growth Group.
Mm-hmm.
And we had built such a strong bond that every month, on the first Monday of every month for me, the first Tuesday, because I'm the goofball that's on the wrong side of the world, we have a video conference. So we all get together and we just share our wins, we share our challenges, we still kind of support each other. We're anticipating getting together at some point, and like many of them have, because they're on the mainland, so it's easy for them. I'm way out here. We have a member of our group that's from Hawaii, and so we plan on like just continuing this relationship, as a lifelong thing. And just working with each other to kind of help each other, because that was one of the strong points of this program. Mm-hmm. So we didn't want to let it go. So as we were leaving, we remember looking at each other and we said, we're not going to let this go, are we? And like, no. And so
you should call them over here and make them try out the shack.
Honestly, at some point we will.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They're seriously considering it. They really want to get out here. One of the guys is in the cannabis, I think they call it soft money or something like that, industry. So there's some, like, there might be a chance for businesses as well. And so just to get them out here at some point, hopefully that would be really cool. Cool
are you the only person up to now that are from?
I believe so. After I went, I was allowed to refer some people, and so I want to say that Derek from Latte Build was accepted, but I think he has to work on his availability to get out there. But I don't think he's started it yet, but he might. And then another gentleman just came in, Michael. Oh wow, I'm having a brain fart. I forgot his last name. But, so Michael just got accepted, so there'll be another person who will be starting up shortly. So it's cool, and it's all thanks in the end. Like, I owe so much gratitude to Nicole Bavalta for putting it in front of me and pushing me and getting me to do it, because it was so fulfilling and it was so rewarding, and cool. Very helpful.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And even stuff like that, like, I like hearing about, you touched on it, like being the first to do something, saying like good. Kind of paving the way. Because if anyone else here, has interest in this, saying now we have someone who went through it, who experienced it, so maybe we could get some pointers that you didn't have,
Most definitely, And I'm definitely here if anybody's watching, anybody's interested. There are some, like, just reach out to SBDC or go online and look at it. If you're a small business owner that's interested in it, let me know. They give a lot of credence, or a lot of power to referrals coming from alumni. So now that I'm an alumni, if I refer someone, that helps with their chances of getting accepted in.
Gotcha.
And so
is it a big pool? Like,
it's their goal was 10,000 businesses.
Okay.
So they've been doing this since I don't know, and they're just about up to 10,000. So when I was in my last cohort, the spring cohort, they were at like 9,000 some businesses that they had put through this program.
Gotcha.
And as we were finishing that up, they had brought in their head guys, and they said that they're not going to stop at 10,000. They're just going to keep going.
Oh, nice.
And so they're not going to cap it. It's just going to keep going on. So I think it'll run for quite some time. They have all the data to show like this enormous success from the businesses that have been through it. Because what they do is they reach out on increments, and since they took like a snapshot of your business when you entered the program, now every so often, like every year, every 2 years, they're going to ask for that snapshot too, so they can showcase how that business has grown. So the one thing they've noticed is anybody that's been through the programs, they've found a lot less chance of attrition or of businesses closing down. They've shown like extreme like revenue growth, employee job creation growth, that kind of stuff with them. And so that's why they want to keep it going as well.
Nice,
it's shown to be so successful.
Cool, man. Yeah, that's what's up, bro.
Yeah,
damn, again, cool. I'm telling you right now, this is one of the reasons why, we spoke before. Like, I purposely don't do any research because, I want to be amazed by, everything that's coming out, man, which is cool. So, yeah, guys. And let me say something, too, about Glen, man. And even before all this, like, it was very easy to ask you about stuff, to ask you your opinions on things and, how you explain certain things, like, it's very cool. So, now more than ever, if there's any small businesses out there that's, interested in this program, definitely check it out, check him out.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. Questions. And as well, I'm also very open to anybody that has questions about anything, doing business in the CNMI, challenges of opening and running a business, challenges of starting your own business, and anything at all. Like I'll always try and make myself available. So if somebody wants to talk, the one thing that I learned in my life was I would, like, you can be smart by learning as you go, and the failures, I learned so much, and that's smart, right? Like you learn from, like, oh, I touched fire, it burns, okay, I'm not gonna touch it again. You're really smart. Yeah. But there's so much that you can learn from other people. So if you burned your hand and you told me don't touch it, hey, now I'm wise because I learned from your learnings, right? I didn't have to burn my hand, right? Like I took from your wisdom. And so along the way, I always pull from people, like whatever I can, on what worked for them, what didn't, and I'm always going to be as open and as truthful as I can with anybody that comes to me for help. And I mean that genuinely. I don't see any of the other small business, any business on this island as competition. We don't. Nobody at the Shack does. Nobody in any of my businesses do. And so always, like, I just want to put that out there. Anybody can always ask if you need anything. I don't have nearly any of the answers, and most of my answers are wrong, but I know where I failed, and I can showcase that.
Well, man, that was like the perfect segment, man. Okay. So, like I said, something new with the podcast. If you guys are following me on Instagram, I give the viewers, I give the fans the opportunity to ask you questions. Okay, and again, don't feel pressured to answer them. Okay. If you want to decline, that's fine as well. Okay. All right, and I guess John here will be reading them off. Okay.
Thanks, John.
Sorry, this has nothing to do with the Shack. Some questions don't have anything to do with the Shack. That's fine, right?
I don't have a date on Valentine's Day.
Someone asked, in your opinion, is it wrong to live a life you think is best for you when your loved ones may say otherwise?
Interesting. Is it wrong to live a life that's best for you when your loved ones think otherwise? I think you should always follow your heart. Like, I really, really 100% believe this. And I know some people say, well, what if it hurts others, right? I'm the type of person, I hate it when people are hurt, right? I hate it when other people are in pain. And I never want to be the cause of that pain. But I have, like, in those learnings along in my life, I have learned that if you sacrifice yourself to make someone else happy or to try and make somebody else happy, it's going to, in my experience, it's always ended in failure. I really believe, like, the little wisdom that I can give on that point is that you should always look to ensuring you are happy in and of yourself, doing what makes you happy. And I really believe in this philosophy. That means, like, not letting the world change you or suppress you, or society or loved ones or people that you don't like stop you from doing what makes you happy. And when you are happy and when you're content and when you're sated and you're satisfied, then when people come around you, that connection, that relationship you have with other people is accentuated so much better and so much more lasting, I think, and it's so much more positive and more genuine. Yeah. And you're not reliant on individuals to make you happy, and you're not something that's reliant, needed, codependent or whatever for them to stay happy. And so I think that might be what they were asking. I don't know.
You know, it's funny. I said this one time when I spoke to the school on this class on Tinian, and you know, because growing up, you know, a lot of kids are very pressured to make their parents happy, you know, and you know, or make their parents proud. And I always tell them, like, you know, your happiness and making your parents proud, you know, you got to find out which one there's more important to you.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what you pursue. Because, again, back to the untraditional thinker, I know a lot of folks that did a 4-year degree and they're doing nothing with it because, you know, they were just kind of told to do it, you know. I have a cousin, he 4-year degree in criminal justice, and he always joked that, you know, the padding was good to sit on because what he wanted to do was become a pilot.
Got it.
You know what I'm saying? So
put that aside.
Okay.
But I think and happiness is really important. Like happiness is really, really important.
Yeah.
And it's easier said than done. Like it's easier. It's very easy. Like you said, you're gonna go against your parents. That's how are you gonna be happy going against your parents, right? But you do gotta find some way to make it work where you do what makes you happy. I think. And that I think of, like you said, untraditional thinker and that kind of thing. And like I remember, like I think I've made people unhappy around me all my life in some way, shape, or form, just because I try to always focus in on myself. But at the same time, I have, like, in the past, sacrificed. And like I said, those when I'm sacrificing, I don't think it's a healthy relationship. So,
What else you got? We have like 13, right?
Yeah. I mean, you want to go through?
Should I go faster? I can go faster. Let's do the speed round.
Let's try it out. Let's try
Yes,
it out.
no, yes,
Okay.
all of the above.
Someone asked, what is your favorite food on the menu?
Ooh, at the Shack.
Yeah.
For me, because I still try to stay primarily vegetarian, but I will do fish or chicken sometimes. I was a vegetarian for 9 years. Going into opening up the Shack and when I had it open, my one of the favorites on the menu is acai. You saw me shift that. I don't have favorites. I just don't do favorites. I don't do favorite people, foods, movies, whatever. I can say I really like that, but the acai bowl is really good. The quinoa lunchbox is awesome. And Derek from Latte Build helped us develop what's called the Latte Gym Special. So when I'm feeling like chicken, that's a really good one. Yeah. But everything on the menu is delicious. And truthfully, I
agree with that statement, by the way. Always try and change up.
I'm not biased at all. No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
What's the best restaurant on Saipan?
Ooh.
Oh, wow. Again, I don't do favorites, right? But I can name off some really good ones. And forgive me if I miss any. But in no order, no particular order. Some of the ones that I will eat at a lot, or when I get a chance to run away, is I really love Caravan. Again, because I try and go vegetarian, so they have vegetarian options, and even if it's not vegetarian, the chicken options, stuff like that, they're very they clean, cook clean. Ina's Kitchen is amazing.
Yes.
Chaw is awesome. Everest Kitchen.
Ooh,
Good.
That's that.
Marina's Creations is really cool to go in there and just feel that local vibe with the artwork and the crafts.
There.
Oh, you gotta stop in, sneak in.
Yeah.
It's cool to be surrounded in items that were made here or produced here.
Yeah.
It just feels good.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned them, because if you're listening, like, you guys are gonna come on next.
Yeah,
sometime down the
awesome.
line. Yeah,
so awesome.
Might have the same question too. So, but Ina's Kitchen too, man. Oh, dude,
so great.
Yeah, man, Sonny,
so great.
Yeah.
Those are just people with passion. You know what I mean? Naked fish. Holy moly!
Yeah.
Thank God they're back again. You talk about these the things that make you feel good, like you get YouTube, impacting them so negatively, and then you see them push through and resurrect as, like, it's different, so you don't have to compare. It's a different location, it's a different setting, it's a different, but it's so awesome. Awesome, and it's just one of those places I like to sneak in when I get a chance. So you got that, and then an old time favorite. I really like Kazuroshima.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Such a sweet place, and that's been around for a house turned into a restaurant behind the church. It's just something about it's awesome. Focusing on local ingredients. Had some really great chefs there over the years. Shout out to Paul. And then
another one along those lines too is like Jay's. You know, it's
Jay's is awesome, man.
Oh.
Jay's is the bomb, and we still hit that every chance we get.
Right,
man.
yeah.
Usually at the too early in the morning.
Yeah,
but
no,
they're there, and they put up with us lying down on the tables.
I always tell people like that is the unofficial after
Yes.
party, because
Yes.
I remember when I
Yes.
moved back, you know, that experience of going to Garapan, seeing the same folks.
Yes.
Then we all end up at Jay's, you know, like holy
Friggin'
shit,
awesome.
like dude, that's
So,
all you.
so awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got 360 with the most spectacular view on island for sure. So that's an awesome one.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many. Like we're blessed. Like I spent 6 years of my time back here actually going every week between here and Guam. So I would spend the week in Guam, then I'd come back here for the weekend. Like this was like my life for like I was 1C. Get into the plane, sit down in the little prop plane, and it was like there and back every single week for 6 years. I did it for 3 years with one company. Said after I got fired there, I was like, okay, I don't got to do that anymore. Thank God. Then started with another company. Did it for 3 years there too. So no matter what, I ended up getting shifted to Guam, and but I never wanted to leave here, so I'd jump back and forth. But whenever I'd go to Guam, it was so cool because like they have so many eateries, right?
Yeah.
But the food here is so much better, and they would always say because there's something about it. There's something about these restaurants here and the love and the passion that they put into the food. You might have the variety in Guam, and don't knock it. There's some really great kitchen lingo.
Pikas.
Pica's amazing. Mezcla. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
Proa.
yeah.
Oh my God, they got so many. Like they got good ones, but honestly, like you can go to Wild Bill's here, and man, you get something off that back of the menu, and it's so awesome. You know, there's some really good places to eat here, and I think every place offers something. It's not, and that's why I don't like favorites. Like I can go to Korea, which is a great Japanese restaurant. Yes, it's Korea. It's a Japanese restaurant. I just love that. and they have like some of the best Japanese food in the world, right? Or umboshi, or like so many really good restaurants. Like I really love visiting restaurants. I love promoting them. I love people going to them as well. I'll always tell if somebody comes into our restaurant and asks, I'll write them a list of every place that I can remember that I had just been to, and encourage them to go there and try it out, because I believe like all of these businesses, all these restaurants doing well, in the end helps everyone, including me, including my family, including everyone. Those are job creators. Those are revenue generators. So why would you want to knock them? Like, oh, so I can stand on this hill alone with nothing around me? Like, so I can be like this great business in the middle of a desert of other businesses? It doesn't make any sense. So it's this rising tide kind of thing has to happen where everybody helps each other, and we all go back to our culture, what we really believe, like the way we were raised. Like my brother used to go out and fish, right? And like he would take his fishing boat. He loves fishing. God, he loves fishing. He'd go in the morning at like 4 a.m. He'd stay out till 6 at night, and then he'd come back and he'd have a boatload of fish, like tons. And he'd put it on and thing. He'd distribute it to everybody that's working for him, everybody that he knows, all the family members. I'm like, dude, you gotta sell some. You gotta pay for the gas. You just burned like how much gas all day? No. He would never sell a single one. It was all about just giving back. And he'd give it to him. He'd say, that's one less meal they gotta buy. Makes him feel good. It's like it'll come back to him in some way, and it always does, man. It does. Karma's a true thing. What you give, you get. I really, really believe that. And he always showcased that, and I learned so much from him in seeing that, as well as my mom. But so many great restaurants. So many great restaurants on this island. Like,
Well, I'm glad you listed them. Hopefully they're watching.
There's so many more though. I know I'm like kicking myself now because I'm thinking, oh, there's so many more. There's so many. Like even the restaurants in the hotels are awesome. Like those are really cool restaurants, each their own, right? Like you got the ones that do teppanyaki, the ones that do crazy ass brunches, like Hyatt's an experience, right? Every Sunday, everybody's So there's such good food here, and everybody should just try it all. Try it all.
Good answer, by the way.
So great. Spicy Thai, awesome.
Okay.
Salties, holy cow! You got to go down to Salties and Garapan. Man, Garapan restaurant's a bomb. Sipping paint tomorrow or tonight, depending on when you watch this.
Depending on when I put it out.
So many great restaurants. You shouldn't ask me that. See, now I'm thinking about it the whole time. Who am I missing?
We'll come back to it.
I'm just kidding. I'll write it all up.
For a very outspoken gentleman, you have
Judy's.
been very quiet lately. Why?
Oh wow, I didn't know I was quiet. I think I'm learning, and I think I'm changing. I mean, I gave a speech at thank Marinas High School for inviting a Mount Carmel alumni to give their keynote speech. That doesn't happen often, right?
Maybe that question was geared because you touched on it. Maybe it was geared more towards. I think you were more active after Solar Lore.
Maybe I think
along those lines?
I think I'm changing, right? I'm learning. So as I go, right, I'm still very cognizant of the one thing that when I came back to the island, one other thing that so I like to walk the walk, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm gonna say something, I want to be able to showcase it as an example. I want to show people that it can be done. That I'm not just telling people stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, everything I say, I try and emulate or do, right? And so along the way, if I encourage, like the one thing I noticed was there was a lack of active citizens, people that would speak out on issues, that would showcase solutions, that would challenge the status quo. And so that what that ends up doing is it's detrimental to our democracy, right? If the people are not speaking out and they're not speaking their mind, and you're leaving your all the power vested into a handful of people on a hill, you're gonna have a troubled environment.
Yeah.
And it really, like a thriving democracy, it has to have the voices being used and being heard. And so that's what I've always kind of pushed. I've pushed people to be active citizens. I don't care what party you're with. I don't care what side you stand on an issue. Vocalize it.
Mm-hmm.
Be open to listening to other people's sides of it, to sit down and have constructive debates and dialogue on the matter. Because no one's perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm so far from perfect. What I believe to be a perfect world is going to be so different than someone else's. Yeah. But somehow, all of us on this little rock have to come to an agreement on things. And the only way to come to an agreement on things is you have to first express what you feel, and then listen to what you feel, and then we kind of come together and see if there's any common ground, and that kind of stuff. But well, we've rested, like we've released all of our opinions and our thoughts, and we've put it all in a handful of people over the years. And so what I've done is just tried to encourage people to speak up. So why somebody might think I've become more silent is maybe I'm changing, right? I'm changing you can stand on the side of the road with signs, and I think there's a lot of power in that. And I've done that even recently, is like probably middle of last year or something. I still think there's power in people speaking in any way. I've done a march with the teachers when they had issues. I've done, but I think the reason why it may seem that I'm not as outspoken is maybe because the other voices are rising. And so
nice.
If you're standing, like a single candle in a dark room really stands out, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, wow, that's a single candle in a dark room. Look at that. But if you start turning up the ambient light in the room, that candle starts to lose its fire, right? Its significance, its importance. It doesn't stand out as much. So, and then if you turn the lights on fully, the candle's lit there, you might not even notice that it's lit. It's still burning the same. Nothing's changed. It's still doing what it did before, maybe in some different ways. I know I've changed how I approach things. When I first came out here, I was strong-headed. I was bullheaded. I had my opinion on things. I had what I thought was perfect. And I made sure that I vocalized that, maybe so much so that it caused other people not to share what they thought was perfect. And so I learned that later. I was like, wow, I'm telling people to speak up, but then I'm speaking so loud that they can't share what they don't feel comfortable sharing it. So I learned to kind of take a step back and maybe listen to people a little bit more. Yeah. And so maybe now I'm listening a little bit more, I hope. And then how I express myself has changed. I used to be an adamant. I would send letters to the editor. I'd talk to the reporters on a daily basis. I'd send letters to the legislature. I'd send emails to the press. I'd send any issue that came up that I thought was near and dear and that would affect the CNMI positively or negatively, I'd speak out on. I still do the same thing, but I do it in a little bit more of a streamlined fashion. So now I know where the contacts are, where the people are to talk to. So I don't need to, at that time I was fresh, I want to shout it. So I want the people that need to hear this to hear it. Now, over the years, I've learned, like, okay, if this is dealing with corruption, I can contact the FBI. hey, if this is dealing with a legislative issue, I can contact XYZ representatives. So I can still showcase it, but I don't have to showcase it on a global level or a large level, because now I've established contacts along the way, and those contacts I've established are good contacts. Even when I was shouting, like telling people like this is, and I was demanding other people to shout, because I thought it was that important that they speak their mind. And it is. It is. If you want to shout, shout. Like, Jesus, do whatever you want. Be happy.
Yeah.
Even when I was doing that, I was always doing it issue-based, based on the issue, based on the principle at hand, based on whatever it was. It was never done to be mean or spiteful or personal or vindictive towards anyone. And to this day, I still like. And so now, keeping in line with that, if I don't have to broadcast it, every single thing, and I know the right person to go to get my message across, I can do that without it showcasing to everyone else. So I'm still very vocal. I want to like assure everyone I'm very vocal. You can talk to the reps, you can talk to the chamber, you can talk to, I think they want to turn me down still, but because I'm
just a different strategy now.
But yeah, it's a different strategy. It's a different way of approaching it. And then I really believe it's because there's so many more people. Like I told you, I marched with the teachers. I had no idea. Before, the people used to contact me like, hey, Glenn, can you help with this? And I'll always help if it's something dealing with being an active citizen. I'm like, yeah, of course I will. Let's do it. Look, this is what we need. We need to get sheets. We need to do this. You got to get water. You got to get tents. You got to, and I tell them everything that I learned along the way to do whatever they were after. But that time I was sitting on the shack with the guys and we're just chilling. Now all of a sudden I see like a stream of people kind of wandering down the beach path with their signs and chanting. And I was like, the hell's going on here? What is this? So I walk out and I'm like, you guys okay? What's up? And they're like, oh, we're teachers. We're mad about there's something going on in my mind. But I was like, really? And I was like, hey, yeah, can I join? So because I always support it. So I jumped in and I joined it. But they did like, so many people are speaking up. So many people are writing letters to others. So many people are doing lawsuits. So many people are up on the hill. So many people. So it feels so awesome to see. Like it's so awesome. And I'll always encourage that and always acknowledge that and always be thankful for that, because it's so important. Like it's so important. There's how many people out here, right, on our island, and there's so many ideas, so many resources. We got to tap it, and it'll help this place be so much better if everybody could speak up. Definitely. When they can, when they're passionate about something, speak up. Yeah, don't ever feel like you don't have a voice. Cool. But yeah, okay. Sorry. No, you don't. And I'm gonna run out of time here.
No. Unless are you pressed for time?
No, man, I'm enjoying this.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be nervous and not liking this one. I'm enjoying this. Yeah.
Okay, what advice would you give to someone who is looking to open up their own restaurant?
Don't do it. No, just kidding. The advice is to like some of the simple things right off the bat. Right, number one is do create a business plan. I know a lot of people say like, oh, business plan. It's a extremely important document just to kind of getting yourself focused in on what business you're doing, and then on the financial side, it can be very beneficial on that side. If you have trouble doing something like that, there's I would encourage one of the first places for somebody to go that's thinking of opening up a restaurant is go and talk to Nicole Babalta. Go talk to the SBDC. Sit down with her. They can help you do the business plan. They can help you look at financing options. They can help you with so much. I didn't. And now I talk to so many people that did. And I'm like,
oh, that's funny.
So that's that wisdom side, right?
Yeah,
so I learned the hard way. They can learn the easy way. So definitely that. The other thing is to keep in mind that anybody that's going to open up any business, you mentioned it earlier. It's like, number one, make sure you're passionate about, make sure you're willing to give it your all. And what I mean by that is, I've seen many people open up businesses and kind of like be standoffish about it. Like they set it up and then they walk away and then they come back a few years later and they're like, or shut down a few years later and they wonder what happened. And I'm like, you can have this great vision, you can have this great passion about something, but you almost, and I know it goes against, this bucks the trend again of delegation, and you own the business, you don't have to work on it. You're the big boss now, so you can like set it up and let it run, and you just reap the revenue rewards off of it. I don't buy that crap. I think I think some of the most successful businesses were established by people that worked in their business, at least for the early on, at least the first few years. Like you have to be in there. You have to set the culture. You have to make sure you know the ins and outs of everything. How else can you properly manage it, especially in the restaurant industry? And so I highly encourage them, if they're thinking of doing that, to seriously think if they're willing to devote that, because it is you almost it's not a simple business. It's actually a very difficult one when it comes to it, but there are ways, like it's not, man, like just believe it can be done. So believe in yourself, go see SBDC, make a good business plan, and I would encourage them to like think and factor themselves working in the business, at least in the early ongoing, and then as time progresses, they can slowly wean themselves away maybe and start working on the business, which is very important to growing it. But before you grow it, it's like a seed, right? Like just like be there with it. Yeah, baby with it, baby it, and be there with it. So those are some of the main things. Cool. And then if they can, Shack discount will.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Rob was asked the same question, and it's funny because you brought up another agency that could help. Rob spoke of, was it CDA?
Yes, definitely, and that's what Nicole would point you in those directions when it comes to financing and stuff like that.
Yeah, so the assistance is
Matter of fact, when he even said that, I was like, damn, I should have gone to CDA. I started without a loan, right? So I'm like, God. So that makes it even more difficult. But I can showcase and say you can start it without a loan. You can start it with money in your pocket. You can start it with credit cards. You can start it with shoestring budget. You can start it with. So it is possible on both ends of the spectrum. So definitely don't, go see CDA. Go see, and don't let certain things frustrate you. Always keep as positive an outlook and perspective as you can, because along the way, there's going to be naysayers. There's going to be people that tell you why that restaurant won't work, why that idea won't fly, why, that's been done before. Who gives a damn? If you're passionate about something, just do it. Don't let any of that stop you. Just put your all into it, and don't expect immediate rewards. That's the other thing. Anticipate having to struggle. Anticipate the struggle. Manage your expectations. And that's so important, because some people go into it and they're just like, I started a business, I'm not making money. Oh, you started like 2 weeks ago, brother. So that's the other thing.
Cool.
All right.
We have a couple more?
Or? Yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Who would you call your role model and why?
Ooh.
Man, I have so many. Of course, nearest and dearest to my heart is my mom. Bar none, just in everything she's done her life. She's such an amazing woman, and I'm very biased because she's my mom, but I'm very honest because that's how she raised me. But yeah, she was somebody, especially out in these islands. She's been out here since the 60s. Yeah, she came out here to get a high school education and ended up like living here. And but yeah, she we were talking active citizens and politics and all this stuff. She has one of the most, I hope somebody at some point looks into it, but growing up here, she worked as a special assistant for the governor. She was a cabinet member, initially for the Teno administration back in the, the 80s, early 80s maybe. And she held that position through, it must have been like 8 terms or something. This is an appointed cabinet position in an island that's highly political, and that was through Republicans and Democrats. It doesn't make any sense, right? It shouldn't happen, because usually when the next governor comes in, cabinet usually turns in the resignations, and if you're on the opposing party, you get replaced by somebody else. But she showcased to me that even though people say that's the way it is, that's the way it should be. Like, if you can't be hired in government just on your own merits and on what you say you got to play this political game. I never saw her play that political game, right? And I witnessed this firsthand. She never said anything. I was just like this fly on the wall watching this all and wondering, and later in life when I came back here, people would say something else and I'd be like, that's not true. I know firsthand that's not true. You can speak your mind, you can do your job, you can do things the right way and still be rewarded for it. It doesn't always have to be this status quo that exists, and that's another thing I want to let whoever's listening here, just because something's always been a certain way doesn't mean it always has to be. So don't be afraid to challenge things, to challenge the status quo, to question things. It all starts with questioning, so I would encourage people to always question everything. So role model number 1 would be my mom. My stepdad as well. He was also very influential in my life. He's passed away, Frank Rosario. And then my real dad, who I knew very briefly, just for a short amount of time, had a massive influence in my life, even though he might not know it. I went to take care of him as he was dealing with terminal cancer when I was much younger. And it was supposed to be a couple months of me just taking care of him, the stranger that I hadn't grown up with. He left when I was very young. I got to know him very well. I got to learn that a lot is passed on through the blood. We're more alike than anybody would believe. But the experience, he ended up living for 2 years, so I ended up taking care of him for 2 years. And then when he died, it molded where I went after that in life, as far as how I lived my life, being like aggressively pursuing my own happiness. Like, came from that. I never wanted to be at the end point of my life and not. So I tried to live every day. Like, before there was YOLO, I was already doing it. But yeah, so those three main people. And then out here, some of the big ones were like Tony Pellegrino. I mentioned his name earlier. He was such a cool role model just then as a mentor. The shack deck was built by their Trade Institute guys. I paid them to come down and do it because he had just started the Trade Institute. And that's still going strong, so it's awesome. But yeah. Go ahead.
Cool.
What motivates you to wake up every morning and do what you do?
Oh my. Huh. Wow, that one I might not be able to answer, man.
Oh, for too much? A lot.
Yeah, that's wow, what motivates me? Because today there's not a lot that motivates me as of today. But in the past, it was the main purpose I had was making sure that that I could be impactful in this island, that I could try and make the CNMI a better place. But I'm not as needed anymore, because it's a good thing, because other voices are coming up and everything. So I'm not as, like, there's not that fire in there as much. It still exists and it's still there, but it's cool that so many other people are doing it. So it kind of reduces the burden on me. But yeah, not a lot right now. That's just personal things.
Yeah,
but
okay.
Fine. Yay. Next.
Are we far off from everything, or?
Yeah, pretty much.
Awesome.
There's one more I could ask you.
Okay.
There's a lot more you can ask me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a quick one. So.
Last one, I guess.
Sure.
Where do you see the shack in 10 years?
Ooh.
There you go.
So that's a scary one, because I've always wanted to expand on the shack. Yeah, I started it out, and I always intended to have alternate locations, maybe on this island, but also in other places. And every time I would start saving and start constructing a plan towards this expansion of the shack itself in some way, shape, or form, Sodalor came and hit us. So I was like, 2 years into it, I was like, okay, 2 years, we're going strong, everything's going well, I can start to expand. And then boom, Sodalor hit. So I was like, damn it. And then regroup, reset it up. Then a couple years of going along, I start thinking again. And I go to this program with Babson that deals with that growth opportunity and how you expand your business. And I was like, so I had it all planned out. Everything's all good. I was getting down that track. And then YouTube hits.
Yeah.
So I've told myself that I'm not going to say like, oh yeah, we're going to expand. But we definitely, I mean, I gotta knock on wood.
yeah.
Because I don't want more storms.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see it. I can see expanding and then having alternate locations here on the island, and maybe a couple in Guam.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that too, to tack on that question. Yeah. So you're trying to get off the island as well?
Yeah, there are some things that I wanted to. Yeah, I wanted to start up another shop as well in Hawaii, and then end goal would be, and it wouldn't be the shack per se, but something along similar lines, and then I'd have the 3 going, and then. We have for strange reason, we have a very strong following from Korea, like huge. Like we had BTS come and eat at the shack. BTS, the band, came and ate. We fed BTS, which is like nobody who knows like crazy bands like that believes it. They're like, no way they didn't come there.
No.
We had but for some reason we have this really big following from Korea. So at some point I also would like to open up something there just for shits and giggles. Yeah, just to have fun. And my end goal is to have these little establishments open up all around the places, like spread out from here, so I can just hop around. That's the goal. So eventually, I'm just dragging feet and getting old. So we'll see. Well, maybe it'll have to be Chef D and Henry to see it into fruition. But that's the big big thing I wanted to kind of squeeze in there as well. Like we've been talking, and a lot of the questions are aimed at me, but I have to express just how things like the Shack, the Airstream, being an active citizen, all this stuff really is it isn't me. It's the people that I'm surrounded by, that I'm blessed with to have in my life. And I mentioned earlier, we have the souls at the Shack. They create that experience. They create that culture. They create that love that you feel. I just I try and compliment it when I can. But it's really them and the leadership of Chef D and Henry, who's been away for a while, is instrumental, and the leadership of that my mom provided early on. And then at the Airstream, having Jasper on the side there, just overseeing everything, is invaluable, and Mike on the side there helping as well. So what it comes down to is I'm sitting here, but like all the stuff that we talk about is not me. It's the people that are around me, and the people that support me, and this community. This community makes the Shack what it is. It's crazy. Like the Shack would never be the way it is without this community. It's the things we do, the circus we have there, the organized chaos, the craziness, like that can only fly with customers that cherish that and appreciate that. And I don't know if that's everywhere in the world, but it's definitely here, and it really it matters so much to me, and I'm so thankful for that. I'm so blessed. Like what wakes me up in the morning is probably just the feeling of being blessed, no matter what I'm going through in my life. Like I really am. I'm so humbled by it. I'm so stoked. I love it. I love it so much.
That seems to be the common thing too with a lot of successful businesses, is that support network, that group is so crucial. Sometimes it's overlooked or underrated, and what do you call that? And again, we keep saying this, but when you go to the Shack, like you'll know what we're talking about, because it does create its own atmosphere, man. Like, again, it might be cliche to say, but like I swear you could walk in there and your mood just automatically switches. If it's not the music, it's the people. If it's not the people, it's the food.
There's a quote I kind of almost live by, and it's be the change you want to see in the world. So you can push people to be more loving and more caring and more considerate and more friendly. And you can try and shout at them to do it, or you can create, like what I'm doing is that example. It's a bubble. The Shack is a bubble, and when you enter into this bubble, that's the change I want to see in the world. I want to see people that really truly can establish meaningful relationships with the people they might have just met. Like if you look at some of the reviews we get, it just stuns me. I'm like, these are people that like only came here once, and then they'll leave with this experience that's so fulfilling that they'll reach out to us to share that experience and then like carry forward. So it's that's what it is, as well as it's just this bubble of love.
And it's on all your plates, like the
thank you.
Who what's her name?
Mary Jane.
Mary Jane.
Annie.
They all write that stuff.
All
in.
of those guys in.
It's pretty
Tone,
cool.
they all have fun there. They have fun writing down the messages.
The
love notes that we've kind of got known for, and that's really fun. Again, those are things that just organically came about. Who knows when they started? It's definitely there's no SOP that I didn't plan that in the business plan. But it's really cool. It's cool to watch, and it's gonna keep evolving. Cool. As it evolves, who knows, where do you go after you love someone? What's the next stage?
Man, definitely. I can't wait, with everything you just said. I can't wait to see where the Shack goes from here, you know what I'm saying?
Thanks,
that would be so cool. Dude, how cool would that be to know that there's a Shack in fucking Korea, man?
Hey,
right? Would that be sick? Hell yeah. So man, I always tell this with the guests, I want to recycle my guests eventually.
Okay.
So I guess we'll stop it, for now.
Perfect.
And then anything else that, I missed or we missed on, I'll catch you on the next one.
Sure.
But you've already done it, but is there any other shout outs you want to give? I'd like to give an opportunity to the guests. Forgot to do it with Rob, by the way. My bad, bro.
No, that's really cool.
But yeah.
Someone who was like extremely influential in my life when I talked early on about being in Hawaii and having that web develop is another brother of mine. That's Lebu Falliner.
Okay.
And he was one of the more influential people in my life as well that I didn't get a chance to talk to on this segment, but I highly respect him, and he taught me so much in my life, and I learned so much from him, and we still are learning from each other.
Okay.
And so shout out to him. He's awesome, and yeah, I'm sure there's other people. I'm brain farting.
Yeah, no, it's cool, man. It's cool. The what do you call that? So hours, maybe just throw that out there. Hours of operation for the Shack.
Yeah.
and
The Shack
Airstream.
is open Monday through Friday from 8 till 2, and on Saturday from 8 till noon. This Saturday we have the Love Shack pop-up shop, so come down. That's February 15th, and then the Airstream is open from Monday to Saturday right now, from 8 till 2 or 3ish, a little bit depends. And the hours on that might change a little bit going forward, but that's what we have set right now. And Sunday, both locations are closed.
Okay.
A bunch of lazy people.
No, man, and I want to say too. Let me just throw this out there. Definitely follow this dude on social media, man. With Glen Hunter, the Shack Saipan, and
Awesome.
Airstream, right?
Yeah.
Are those all the
Airstream
handles?
Saipan.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, it's on my Instagram.
Thanks, brother.
You know, if you forget, but definitely please check the homie out, man, at the Shack,
you,
and say what's up to everyone over there. I promise you that what we're talking about is no lie. We're not over exaggerating. Like, dude, it is its own fucking atmosphere, man. And
Awesome.
it's hella, like, yeah, it's hella badass, man. Yeah, I
Go in
couldn't
there
come
and
up
shout
with a
at
good
it. The guys, when you go in, make sure you shout at them. Yell at them. yell at Chef Ray. Yell at Chef D. Yell at Chef Tone.
word.
Yell at
Yeah.
Mary. Just yell at all of them.
Yeah, and honestly, man, thank you for coming on,
Thank
man.
you.
Like, again, when this whole podcast started up, your name was on my list. I just never got to it. So now with all this new equipment, I'm trying to go through all the folks that I've spoke to before that I've gained knowledge from, So I'm like, let's bring them on and spread that knowledge, man. Spread everything that you've ever shared, and I appreciate you doing that.
Man, thank you.
And-
Thank you for having me. I'm the one that needs to thank you.
Oh,
Really thank you.
Yeah, I'm so enlightened by
Progress,
this.
progression of Glenn. I'm getting over the mic fear. I'm getting
Yeah,
over the mic
okay,
fear.
there
I'm
you
getting
go,
over the
there you
mic.
go.
Getting over the camera.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but man,
Little
honestly,
by
I'm
little.
so enlightened by this conversation, like just
thank
the
you.
history and everything. So, oh yeah, and let me just put out a disclaimer. I'm hoping to put this out tomorrow, okay, which is the 14th or
Sure.
Valentine's Day.
Sure.
Yes, because we're advertising Saturday, so
Yes.
it may be all right. It may have happened, but still be on the lookout for the shirts.
Yes.
Like you mentioned earlier, hopefully the other shirts that we've seen in there. Yeah, hopefully they'll be available for
Yes.
the customers. People like
For
me,
sure.
man, I definitely grab all
For
of
sure.
them.
For sure.
But
Awesome.
but yeah, man. Thank you again. Thank you everyone for watching. I guess stay tuned for the next one.
Yeah.
Till then.
Thank you. Brother.
Shoots.
Thanks so much.
Fuck yeah, bro.
Oh,
Damn, dude. Bro,
so
that was
nervous.
so cool, man. Bro, I'm honestly genuinely enlightened, bro. I like the whole